So, yeah, but like, yeah. Which way you going? Yeah. Good job with you. Good evening. I will call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. We have Vice President De La Fuente, Clerk Ramirez, and myself present. Trustees Vega and Robertson are absent today, but we still have a quorum. Welcome. This meeting is being webcast live and recorded. The recording of webcast may capture images and sounds of those attending the meeting. You could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready? City Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion to approve the June 11th regular agenda meeting? Make a motion. Roll call. Sandra. Aye. Sammy.
Aye.
And I. Presentations. Tonight we have two presentations, both provided by Director of Categorical Programs, Ms. Elizabeth Mendoza. Please proceed. Oh, yes.
Good evening, board members. I do have, Board of Trustees, I have a couple of presentations for you today that are required. So the first one is the federal addendum. And I'll start by saying that the LCAP, the federal addendum, and the consolidated applications, all three of those make up the LEA plan for the district. So when we bring the LCAP to you, we are required to also bring to you the federal addendum and the local indicators. So with the federal addendum, that reports all of the LEA's use of federal funds. So our titles 1, 2, 3, and 4. They help to supplement the LCAP goals, and the programs or supports that are written in are actually they're informed by data, stakeholder input, and federal compliance requirements. And stakeholder input, if you remember, is now called educational partners. So within the federal addendum, we do have to align all of our programs or all of our titles and the funding to our LCAP goals. Goal 1, as a summary, is multi-tiered systems of supports for academic, social, and emotional growth. And goal 2 targets safe, nurturing environments and parent engagement. And some of the data that we use to track these are our English language arts, our math, and our credentialed teachers. So we are required to report that information in our federal addendum as well as in our LCAP. So the requirement for Title I is that we report academic supports and specifically how we're going to spend some of these Title Is. They range from academic literacy and technology coaches, interventions, staff development, and programs such as Renaissance Learning. Also in our federal addendum, we have to track educator equity, which by definition, California has 3 things that we have to track: misassignments, ineffective teachers, and then out of field teachers. So we have to ensure that our schools with higher percentages of either Hispanic or low socioeconomically disadvantaged or ELs, that those schools do not have more new teachers or inexperienced teachers or out of field or misassigned teachers, that there's parity within all sites versus putting all the new teachers or inexperienced teachers at one site with students or student groups that may need more help. In order to bring equity to our educators and to bring new teachers up to par, we do spend quite a bit of money on our new teacher induction programs, enhancing mentoring and observations for teachers, and again, supporting new teachers or even veteran teachers with academic coaches. We also have to report in under Title I, our parent and family engagement, how we include our school site councils and advisory committees, when we do our Title I meetings, other activities that bring engagement like literacy nights, math nights, and technology training. And we do have to report whether or not we have translation services at every event that is required, and or that we translate every document that is sent, whether it is just a flyer to an actual a document, that we send it in both languages. So we have to report within Title I also comprehensive student supports that target our how we support our homeless population, our homeless student population, how we transition students from into kindergarten, from elementary into middle school, from middle school into high school, and high school to post-secondary education or career. So those are identified in the federal addendum. And we also have to give an explanation of how gifted students and library services are supported under the student support section. So our key focus areas with our Title I's are our academic achievement, of course, supplementing and not supplanting anything that we do in the core. We ensure that we have educator quality, student supports, and family engagement in order to meet Title I requirements. Within the federal addendum, we also have to report our Title II and how we plan on expending those funds. So Title II is basically the professional growth and improvement funds. Those funds are utilized specifically for those teachers or staff members that are the closest to students. So different people in positions that may be administrators may or may not be funded, or their activities are not to be funded with Title II. They have superintendent in their titles. Title II is automatically unallowable for any professional development, because it's meant to supplement and support those that are closest to the students. So what we do is we really target our new teachers and new teacher supports under our Title II. We pay for NTSI, we pay for mentors, and any other professional development that they may need. We also support, we've supported PBIS under that because it is ongoing. If it's a one-day activity or conference, automatically non-allowable. So it has to make lasting impact on the professional growth of our educators in order for them to provide appropriate resources for our students. Under Title II, we also have to prioritize our process. And so we also pay for recruitment activities. We pay for stipends for teachers that are very difficult to hire. These are allowable expenses, especially when it comes to math teachers and math, science, and special ed teachers. So we do have funds that are allocated to that under Title II. Moving on to Title III. Title III are funds specifically for English learners. So we have to identify what types of supports and professional development that we are providing to our staffs in order to educate our English learners. We've identified some core professional development, which includes designated and integrated ELD during the day, language acquisition and multilingual learner assets training. So in the future, you will hear us moving from English learner to multilingual learner. They're phasing out English learner into multilingual learner. So some of our language is moving that way. We also have to identify specific EL strategies at each site and then direct the support to the staff to implement those strategies that are going to help support our English learners in academics and specifically all core subjects, which are math, ELA, science, and social studies or history. So ongoing assessment supports for LPAC, that is the assessment that we track growth, English language acquisition growth for our ELs. And so that takes a lot of training for our teachers. There is one area that is specific to one-on-one testing, and that is the speaking portion. So we have to calibrate and ensure that every person that gives that section of the test is giving it pretty identically from one to another. Coaching cycles in the classrooms in order to help support newcomers, LTELs, and dually identified students. And that's a fancy way of saying students who are special ed and English learners. Our coaches are also going to have monthly ELD meetings focused on instructional strategies at the sites. So they've committed to that, and I believe both of our ELL district coaches have already sent letters or emails to their respective principals to kind of give them a plan or an idea of what their focus is going to be on their campus next year. The language instructional programs, we do have to report exactly what core is for ELD. So you'll see the ELD Wonders program, ILIT in 4 through 8, 9 through 12 uses EDGE. Alternative Ed also those are the 3 sites at Kings Lake. They also use ILIT. And we do have a required period of 30 to 40 minutes in the elementary classes and 1 full period at the middle school and junior high class grade level. So we at this point we're on enhanced opportunities for immigrants. We do not apply for immigrant funding. It's low and it's also the hardest to spend. So we have traditionally not had a lot of immigrants or very low numbers. So to get $1,000 or $2,000 in that funding really hasn't been prudent for us to apply for those. But in case we ever do get a large number of immigrants, we do have to have a plan on how we're going to spend Title III immigrant funds. And finally, in the federal addendum, we have Title IV. What we usually do with Title IV is we transfer it from Title IV into Title II, Title I, to help support well-rounded educational programs, mental health and behavior, and or technology. So Title IV helps support our academic coaches, which help provide support with teachers and integrating technology, and STEM labs, supporting teachers in the utilization of STEM activities. We also help support our counselors, and in the past, we have funded our 2 clinicians, our MFTs, in using Title IV. So we do leave that in case other funding goes away, then we know where we can come back to. And that is an overview of the federal addendum. Any questions? So every year, we have to report on the local performance indicator, which is an additional piece that's on the California School Dashboard. It is a comprehensive assessment of the district's performance across key educational priorities. And on the next page or next slide, there are priorities 1, 3, 7, 2, and 6 that are key priorities. The local indicators target priority 1, priority 3, priority 7, and priority 6. And 2, sorry. So all these are reported annually using a tool that I believe was linked in the longer document in your packets. But I'm just going to give you an overview instead of going page by page and area by area there. So in priority 1, we do have to have foundation metrics that measure teachers' credentials. With clear credentials, whether or not students have instructional materials and facility, how we rate our facilities based on the facilities tool that is provided during our Williams visits. So we strive to meet good repair standards, not excellent, but good repair standards, which is the requirement for our facilities. And all sites are either good and or exceeding in those areas. So we want to thank you for the support that you have provided to the district in order to update and or modernize our buildings. In priority 2, academic standards implementation. What happens here is we send out a survey to all of our administrators to rate themselves and their sites on the implementation of English language arts, math, ELD, which is English language development, science, and history. The target is to have a 4 full implementation or a 5 sustaining. In ELA, math, and ELD, our staff believe that they are targeting and really working at implementing the standards at their sites. Whereas in science and history, it was a 3. It's not a bad score, but our high schools and middle schools that have periods designated to that actually implement the standards a lot better than our elementaries. So if it's a 3, it's because our elementaries usually target ELA and math and kind of weave in science and social studies. So the implementation of those standards throughout the day is a little less than it would be at a high school or junior high. With priority 3, it is in regards to parent and family engagement. Some of the key indicators here are how parents feel about the schools, whether they feel that they're caring and welcoming, which was an 89% based off of the surveys that were sent out in the spring. 82% of our parents also feel that they can provide input at the schools so that they're given the opportunities to kind of express or make comments in regards to what's going on at the sites. And that's usually done through school site councils or ELAC meetings, coffees with the principals, pastries with the principal, something with the principal. So those activities actually help support parents in providing input to the school. And 91% of our parents feel that the policies that we have at each site actually value diversity. So we want to ensure that our parents and our families feel welcome at all times, and that we continue to increase our participation in family engagement activities. We want to enhance supports for underrepresented families. And we also want to expand evening training opportunities. And those are areas that they have felt can be improved. Priority 6 measures school climates at the schools based off of the student perceptions or staff. So in the elementary grades, which we give surveys to 4th and 5th graders, not all students, students feel that they have really good relationships with their teachers at a 67% rate. 53 of the students surveyed feel that they belong or have a sense of belonging at their school. And safety is at a 46%, which is not too high, and that probably needs improvement. Secondary schools, grades 6 through 12, their safety is at 45%, which kind of mirrors the elementary schools. And the teacher relationships, that what they feel, 36%. And their sense of belonging, that they belong to the school, that they're tied or something connects them to the school, is at 29% based off of our surveys. In priority 7, so I'm going to move on to that. We just have to write a description of how we are expanding our course givings to our students that goes beyond the core, goes beyond ELA, math, science, and social studies. So what we have done is in the elementary, we have music, and we've expanded our music program for the coming year, and also have provided a PE teacher outside of the classroom teacher in order to ensure that they are getting the best services possible for PE, physical education. Our secondary courses, we have a course, full course offering of UC and CSU requirements and CTE pathways. I think it's very robust at the high school. And so we want to expand that into the middle school and have started with ag, music, and art there. Our English learners, we are providing a separate designated ELD time across all grade levels and are requiring that 30-minute of support on a daily basis. And for our special ed students, we are providing individualized supports through comprehensive IEPs and goal development. One challenge that we do find is teacher shortages in math and science, and this is where the federal addendum is kicking in, and we are providing our we have recruitment stipends for those specific teachers because it is hard to keep. They are hard to hire, and then another one is hard to keep them for a prolonged amount of time. So moving forward, our key priorities. So we take all the information from the dashboard and we do prioritize what we see are common threads in all of these indicators. And we know that we have to focus on strengthening our school climates at school, building teacher-student relationships and improving safety perceptions. We need to continue to implement all of our academic standards, especially science and history, at all levels, not just high school and junior high levels. We also need to continue to enhance our family engagement so that they are there participating in activities, and the more that they are there and feel comfortable, the more they are likely to support us and their child throughout the year. And then we do know that we need to continue with our mental health support, expanding counseling services and social emotional learning programs, because it can be a reason why students don't feel safe or have a perception of belonging that ranks or rates that area lower. So we do want to ensure that if students are not feeling connected or there's a reason why, that those areas are low, that we have the supports to help them and talk about them and giving them another adult or staff member to support them. And are there any questions in that area?
Thank you. Okay, report, Superintendent.
Yes, good evening, Board President Cisneros, members of the board, staff, and community. First off, I want to thank Mrs. Mendoza, Mrs. Sierra, and Ms. Alvarez, and there's a countless number of people that go behind these reports, but they are the drivers of what you see here. And so it's a lot. There's a lot to it, right? We have a simplified version of what the actual product is, and so I just want to thank them, publicly thank them for the work that they do. Secondly, we're in summer mode now. Thank you to our staff who worked together to have some amazing closing ceremonies last week that we were all a part of. Great stories, just great time to celebrate. I want to thank Mr. Rojas and his crew because the facilities were immaculate and it takes a lot. In addition to that, juggling state championship baseball series there as well. So that was an added stressor, but at the same time, they were able to get it all done. I want to thank congratulate our varsity baseball team. They got their ring sized, I think it was yesterday, for their valley championship. So they were excited. You know, a lot of long faces on Saturday, but you know what? To be like one of the top, I believe, 10 teams in the state, something like that overall. And I think there was 11,000 baseball teams overall in the state, and we're at that caliber is pretty amazing. We did had feedback from both teams that we played that came here, one from the Paris area of LA, Riverside, and one from Los Angeles on as well. They commented, Mr. Ross doesn't know this, but commented on the field and how immaculate it was. One of them, I think, doesn't even have grass on the infield, and one, I don't believe, has a baseball field itself. So, you know, a lot of times we're fortunate, and when we get that feedback from other groups, right, it's like, wow, like look what's here. So definitely thank you again to the staff for doing that. You know, the board has requested accountability across the district. Almost all 29 of our site and district leaders have been working hard to define accountability framework for 25-26. So if you see any yawns in the audience today, we've just been digging hard and deep in data today. We worked yesterday on talking about teaming and really looking at how we positively work as a team together. So it was a lot of great work, and a lot of it was around the items that Mrs. Mendoza was talking about today. Belonging, how do we increase that sense of belonging, and as well as how do we increase the academics. So really proud of our team. We had not only our site leadership, but also like Mr. Rojas was there. We had Ms. Alvarez and others. So we're getting to that point to develop that accountability framework. Accountability is mutual. I'm going to say this, publicly. Nurtures growth and innovation. It is not a hammer, but a flashlight. And I want to thank the leaders because they've really leaned into that. We have summer programs being hosted by the RAC in grades K through 8. High school summer school is ongoing right now at the TLC, so it's a packed house. Students are in there working, and our upcoming accelerated summer math academies at Fresno Pacific for grades 4 to 12, 4 to 11, I believe, are on the way and ready to go next week. So, it's exciting to see all that taking place. We'll actually be having the RAC come next board meeting to do a presentation on the work we've been working on together to really have a tightened plan on 25-26. So I just want to thank their director for doing that as well. And finally, I want to just thank Mr. Chuck Jett, who, this will be, I believe, his last board meeting. And I just want to just publicly and personally thank you for the work that you've done here, not only in the year and a half that we worked together, but the well over 20 plus years that you worked here in the district, I believe, as a teacher, a vice principal, I'm sure I'm missing stuff, coach, assistant superintendent, all around just different areas. So just want to thank you. If we can give him a hand, just, as for all of his work. And so I know that he doesn't like the spotlight that way, but definitely appreciate you. And so with that, Board President Cisneros, I yield my time.
Any board of trustees reports?
I just want to say that all three graduations were very well thought out and conducted. I think all the kids were extremely polite and very well behaved. So thank you all for that.
I just echo the same thing. It was a really good time to be there and see witness, and it's what you guys worked for all year long. So I do appreciate all the work that you did. Thank you. If there's an Program Faculty Association? No. And California School Employees Association? Neither? All right, very good. Public comment, if there's anybody here to do a public comment on any of the agenda items? No? Okay, then, now do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items? I'll second. All right, roll call, Sandra? Aye. Sammy?
Aye.
And I. Public hearings, 2025-2026 local control accountability plan review. And here we also give an opportunity to see if there's any public comments on this presentation. Yeah, okay, Ms. Mendoza will present.
Hello again. This time I am going to try to present an overview of our 120 plus page LCAP in record time. I'm being timed, I believe. So I do want to say that our local control accountability plan covers all school sites. It reflects the supports that we are providing for 3,201 students. All which of 92.2% are Hispanic or Latino. In the LCAP, we have total fund or expenditures. We've allocated and budgeted total funds of $16,514,650. Of those totals, $14,908,385. I think I read that 16 million incorrectly, so I apologize. Those are local control funding formulas and all the services and actions specifically for our duplicated pupils, which are our foster youth, English learners, and socially economically disadvantaged, which in the LCAP, they are called low income. We do have other state funds that we're braiding, and braiding just means that we're tying them together and utilizing them for the same actions. We have an amount of $1,606,265, and those are all from the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant. It's a new requirement that if we didn't spend all of our LREBGs, then they be written into the LCAP and then reported on how they were spent. So this year we are spending 1.6 million of the roughly 5 million that we have still in the district. Of all these 16 million funds, so between the LCAP or LCFF funding and the LREBG funding, 15,820,000 and some dollars, which is 95.8% of those funds are for personnel, are to support personnel and in supporting and increasing and improving services for our unduplicated pupils and or other students who may need the support. Of those funds, 4.2% or $694,000 are for material supplies and anything else that may be required to support our staff in implementing the actions. Next slide. So this is an overview. I will not read every single key metric and target, but the LCAP does measure in goal 1. That's our academic excellence goal. To summarize it, it's our multi-tier systems of support that address our academic, our social, and emotional growth for students. We are required to have all of these metrics ranging from CAS and ELA and math to English learner progress, graduation and college readiness, attendance and engagement, and a local benchmark assessment. So we are required to have local data that we utilize, and we opt to use our local benchmarks. In each of these key metrics, you will see different items listed and what our targets are in 3 years or 2 years now. Goal 2, so I'm going to move on to goal 2, which is safe and welcoming environments. We want to ensure that our environments are welcoming, safe, and nurturing, and that fosters parent engagement and collaboration. So the key metrics that we are identifying that will tell us whether or not we're making progress to meeting the goals are parent engagement, school climate, and suspension rates. Those are the key metrics in that goal. California recently added, I believe it was last year when we did an overhaul of our LCAP, an LCFF equity multiplier, and those are additional funds that the state provides with a minimum of $50,000 to each identified site to improve stability and areas that when students are moving from one school to another and then back, that we support them in the areas where they'll likely fall below their peers. So those identified sites are all the Kings Lake sites, so continuation, community day school, and Corcoran Academy. So they all receive these funds, and we do target this. We target the use of these funds to increasing graduation rates, college and careers indicators, and reducing suspension rates. For this one specifically, we have to have a student advisory group at those sites and also a parent advisory committee that provide input on what they feel are the needs. So not only do we have to have the educational partner advisory committees for the entire LCAP, but for this specific goal and the expenditure of these funds, we do have to get people, educational partners from those sites to give us input on the utilization of these funds. I do want to say that we are providing additional counseling supports for students there, and not just behavior counseling, but actually academic counseling that are going to target graduation rates, track their transcripts, provide them with more support in identifying what things they need in order to graduate. We actually have a great counselor right now that helped align a lot of their courses to A through G, help set up the system, and hopefully we will be tracking with more precision the college and career indicators so that they are actually on the board for that. So we're pretty excited about that. All right, so implementation and accountability. As I stated, our 3 unduplicated counts are our low income, our English learners, and our foster youth. You see the percentages of each student group there. So everything in the LCAP has to show increase and improved services to these 3 groups of students. Because our low income students is almost the majority, we do utilize the funds for all students with an emphasis on these 3 groups. The state priorities that are addressed, we have to tie each metric and or action to a priority. And those are the basic services, parent involvement, student achievement, student engagement, school climate, course access, and other outcomes. My report isn't providing the specifics as to what we spend things on, but I could kind of give you a quick rundown. In goal 1, we do have what we pay and utilize increased services for our intervention teachers, our behavior counselors, our counselors, our nursing department that at each school. We have increasing the broad course of studying, which is PE, music, CTE programs at the sites. We have library support systems and library texts that come out of that, and a couple of other things. Our English learner supports our academic coaches, one for the English learners, and then the subgroup within that subgroup are long-term English learners. So we have one apiece now. In goal 2, we do have our parent liaison, our safety departments, and ways to improve student parent engagement, such as communication methods and whatnot. Those are examples of what are in each one of those goals. So since it would have been a much longer document and or presentation if I outlined every single expenditure that we had. So with that, that is an overview of our LCAP this year.
Any public comment or board comment? And we have the Corporate Unified School District proposed budget. Any public comments on this budget? Ms. Alberts?
Good evening. So included in the packet is the full proposed 2025-2026 budget that has the all the forms and detailed information that gets sent to the state We do also have the presentation to review the overview of that budget. So the main budget highlights are two key points here is that the district does have sufficient reserves. We are required to have 3% of reserves, which means 3% of our total expenditures. For us, that amount is close to 2 million and our actual reserves are 12.9 million roughly. When we do have reserves in excess of that 3%, we are also required to provide an explanation for what those additional dollars are intended to be used for. We do have that certification in the packet as well. And we outlined that it's assigned for some one-time costs that are planned, maintaining cash flow and other lottery assignments, meaning dollars that we have earmarked for specific purposes. Once we've identified those topics, we are able to continue keeping reserves at that level. The other main highlight is that we are anticipating a positive certification. The reason I put anticipated is that we don't actually provide a certification at the budget adoption. That happens at the interim reports. But all indications are pointing towards that positive certification, meaning that we will meet our financial obligations for the current and 2 subsequent fiscal years, and that we'll have a positive ending fund balance in all of our funds. So just kind of an overview of the budget development process as a whole is that we look at what our funding formula is from the state. Once we have that funding level, we do take into account our board priorities, the community input with the LCAP, which Elizabeth or Ms. Mendoza provided a wonderful overview of, any site and department needs, and any other information that we have available to us at that moment. And the reason I say that is things can change all year long, minute by minute. But this is what we have available to us at this point in time, which also includes an estimation of next year's budget. Currently, the governor provides a budget in January. They do a revision in May, and then that's what information we have to use to create our budgets for the upcoming school year. The state won't actually approve the budget. They have a requirement of the legislature signing off mid-June in a couple of days here, and then the governor signing at the end of June. So right now, this is all based on estimated information. Should there be any major changes, we would bring that back to the board. Outside of that, we do review the historical trend data for both enrollment, expenditures. The enrollment drives a majority of the funding for the school district. About 75% of the funding comes from that student attendance. And then otherwise, in this time of year, we are looking at the close of the current year. So closing of the 24-25 school year, what do our expenditures look like? It gives us a better idea of what we will have ongoing in the future upcoming year for the 25-26 year. And then we're making adjustments for any things that aren't going to continue on. So the enrollment, we have continued to have declining enrollment over the last 5 years. Enrollment is the actual number of students that are enrolled in the school district from TK up through 12th grade. And then we do have, that is taken at the very first Wednesday in October. That's the established enrollment that is based for our district. The enrollment and average daily attendance, while we have a current enrollment of 3160 for the estimated for the upcoming year, we don't actually have attendance at that level, and we're funded on attendance. So it's kind of a two-pronged problem. We have to staff and prepare for the enrollment, the number of kids that we have enrolled, but then we're only funded on who's actually attending. So our our attendance funding is based on either the current year, the highest amount, which we're estimating to be $29.17 for the 25-26 school year. So that's actually lower than all the preceding years. So the current year, if that's the highest, the prior year, if that's higher than the current year, or an average of the 3 preceding years. So for us, we get to have the average of our three years, including the county office ADA for the special ed programs as well. So our funded ADA is estimated to be off of 3,003 students. The general fund revenue, total revenue for the general fund is close to $65 million. most of which 75% of comes from the LCFF, the local control funding formula, and that is driven by our student attendance. Outside of that, the next largest portion is the state funding. That includes grants like the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program, ACES, Prop 28 Arts and Music Program, and CTIG. I picked those out because those are the largest ones of that portion of funding. After the state funding, the next largest portion is the local funding, primarily comprised of the interest that we receive from just having funds available or on account with the county treasury office. And then a few other smaller grants or funding sources, the Medi-Cal billing and CYBHI, which is another new grant. The general fund expenditures are estimated to be about 66.6 million, really close to 67 million. Of that expenditure total, 70% of that is for salary and benefits, and then 30% is for non-labor, so just materials, supplies, services, things of that nature. And general fund expenditures by function, this is just to illustrate the fact that of those 70% of expenditures in staff salary and benefits, in addition to that and the supplies and other expenditures, 80% of it is for instruction, pupil-related services, or co-curricular. 12% is for maintenance and operation activities within the district, 6% for administration, and then 3% other outco. That is our COP payment and the payment to the County Office of Education for special ed-related services. So overall, taking those two together, the total revenue coming in close to 65 million and total expenditures of 66.5 million, that does show a projected deficit spending of $1.7 million. That is comprised of both the unrestricted and restricted expenditures or sides of the budget. Unrestricted side, we would actually have an increase to our fund balance of close to 150,000. And on the restricted side, that's where the deficit comes from of about 1.9 million. So of that 1.9 million, it's one-time funding from like the Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant that we've already received the funding, and now we're actually spending that grant. In addition to that one, the Arts and Music Block Grant at about 500,000 comprises the total deficit spending or spending down of the fund balance. On the next slide, the multi-year projection. So this is just an overview of our current upcoming budget year and the 2 out years. We do have within that the COLA projections, or what the state has provided as COLA, for 2.3% in the upcoming year, 3.02% the 26-7 year, and 3.42%. So we review the changes from year over year, the increased funding levels, any 7-column changes for staff, increases to benefits like PERS, and reductions from any one-time grants. So we do have an increase in fund balance projected for the remaining out 2 years, which, while small in the 26-7 year at close to 28,000, I still think that is significant to consider that it is increasing in fund balance, given that we're going to have a reduction in the average daily attendance estimated at costing us roughly $426,000 or lost revenue of that much by having the continued decline in attendance. And overall, the district fund summary. This just takes a look at all of our funds, the main general fund, which we just spent most of our time on, but then additionally the student activity fund, which I've mentioned, that's just a fund where we record the activity from the activities ASB at the high school and junior high. The adult ed program, which is Fund 1100, and our child development, cafeteria, and so on. So all funds are estimated to still have a positive fund balance at the end, or not need a transfer in from the general fund in any way. Just an additional note, within the general fund, ending balance of 30 million, or almost 30.5, 13.8 of that is restricted, meaning it's earmarked for specific programs, and only 16.7 is unrestricted or available for discretionary spending. That's all I have. Any questions?
Questions? Right, thank you. Future agenda items. Identifying closed session items, public comment and closed session items. So then we can go ahead and identify the closed session items, student matters and student discipline and other confidential student matters. And personnel matters. On that, oh, personal matters, okay, with respect to personal matters. Public. Do we do that now? Closed session, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and set up the closed session at 6:55.